Welcome, riders, to the Coyote Creek Coaster Podcast. Once the queue gates open, please walk into the road directly in front of you. When you find your seat, please pull down on your restraint and buckle your seatbelt. A podcast host will be by momentarily to check it for you. As a reminder, this podcast, along with all major coaster podcasts here on the internet, have a strict no loose articles policy. If you have any loose articles with you, we ask that you please leave them in a locker or with a non-rider. If you will not be joining us right now, we ask that you please take a step back as the queue gates will now be closing. For those of you on ride, your restraints will now be locking, and one of us will be by momentarily to check it for you. During your ride, please keep all arms, hands, feet, and leg down and inside your seat at all times. Keep your head back against the seat rest, hold on to the grab handles until the end of the podcast, and enjoy your ride with us here on the Coyote Creek Coaster Podcast.
Yeah,
Woo!
woo, yeah, woo. I'm always the guy that's like clapping as we're going out of the station on the roller coaster, so I have to be hyped for that. That was inspiring, Max. Thank you. That was wonderful.
Yeah, I'm glad. Yeah. Anyways, officially. Hello everyone. Welcome to our uh attempt at a podcast. We're gonna see how this goes.
Yeah,
Who
yep.
are
The
we
pilot
for the
episode
like
of the
five of
Coyote
us?
Creek Coaster Podcast.
Yep. So for like the five of us who aren't like friends from either of our spheres, who are we?
I feel like I'm truly just a guy. I'm Rack Hudson. Like
Mhm.
I don't have any experience at parks. I don't really have a YouTube channel. So I'm
Uh,
just a guy. But I think
yeah.
that's kind of my dynamic here in this is I'm the guy that has like 92 credits. I don't even have 100 yet. I still love roller coasters, but we'll get into the backstory whatsoever. But then that's kind of in stark contrast to Max, the expert
Me.
over here, like the former ride op at Alpengeist. And how many coaster credits right now, Max?
I'm currently sitting at 257, I want to say. Yeah, 257.
Thank you. Yes, so
So
that
yeah.
perfectly clarifies, I think, the expert v dumbass dynamic that we're going here for this show. We hope you enjoy it. To kind
Mhm.
of explain what the real gimmick here is, and also introduce today's subject is we want to just talk about one thing in depth because I don't like watching these, or I'm sorry, listening to these coaster podcasts, and they kind of tease at the beginning. We're going to talk about Candemonium, and oh, that's cool. I want to hear about Candemonium. They talk about Candemonium for 4.5 minutes, and then they're talking about Disney for the rest of like their 90-minute podcast. If you see the title says 30 minutes of Hersheypark, and you want to listen to 30 minutes of Hersheypark, hey, here you go, Coyote Creek Coaster Podcast. Here's 30 minutes of us talking about Hershey
Yeah.
Park. I mean, and Max, you love Hershey
Mhm.
Park, don't you?
Yeah. For anyone who happens to be listening to this in the future, in the event that this is, somehow popular or something, we're starting recording this right at the beginning of 2021, which, if you somehow happen to be living under a rock, there's kind of been a pandemic the past year. Really put a bummer on a lot of travel plans, but one of the few parks that did open and that we traveled a couple of times to, not that much, but a couple of times to, was
We went twice this year,
Hershey.
I believe, together.
Yeah. Was it only twice? I could have sworn it was at least three times.
It may have been three. Actually, I think it was three.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
hmm And I
Anyway,
mean, we also
details.
did at least, yeah, one or two trips by ourselves right at the beginning of opening, but that's
Dude,
beside the point.
the
But
entire
yeah,
year has blurred together, I think, for everybody. Most of it feel like a
yeah,
lot of
tell
it was
me
a fever
about it.
dream. For a lot of
hmm
people, it was literally a fever dream as they were battling COVID.
Yeah,
So,
that's
yeah.
yeah, the unfortunate reality in which we find ourselves in, unfortunately. But
hmm
yeah, getting
Yeah,
past all the sad dourness of the world, let's let's be a little happier and, as we said, we're gonna start our pilot episode here by talking about a park that we're both very familiar with, Hershey Park, located in Hershey, Pennsylvania, to the shock of hopefully no one.
yeah.
Yeah, where do we want
Someone
to
is
start
learning
here?
what they consider to be trivia right now. Oh my goodness. Hershey Park in Hershey, Pennsylvania, you say? That's
Yeah,
tremendous. I need to
it's
check
amazing.
Wikipedia and learn more about this.
Mhm. But yeah, so to save you that Wikipedia trip here, Hershey Park is a decently large theme park located in Hershey, Pennsylvania, as stated. They're home to now 15 roller coasters, with their newest ride opening this year, which we will get into soon enough.
Oh
It's a
yes.
very well-rounded park, in my opinion. They've got a plenty of really good high thrill rides. I mean, you've got a full house of three large scale Intamins and two large scale B&Ms, all of which are spectacular in one way or another. And then they've got a great supporting cast. They've got the first ever GCI and then another dueling GCI in the back there, plus super old school Woody. How old is Comet? Do you
I
know?
believe that's the 40s. I don't have the exact year. I want to say
40. Yeah.
1947. Someone out there is grading me on that right now. But
Hmm.
yeah, that's super old. I believe
Yeah.
that's Milton Hershey's last attraction that he was involved with in Hersheypark.
Yeah. So we got that, and then there's also a few other little kind of filler attractions scattered about, all of which we'll get into here in a
Yeah,
minute, because of
and
course,
while we do mention Milton Hershey
hmm
right now, maybe you can answer this question for me, Max. Is
hmm
that statue of Milton Hershey, like in around like the carousel circle that used to be by the entrance? How do they keep the
hmm
chocolate from melting on hot days?
it's truly a mystery. I've never looked into it myself.
Yeah,
Maybe someone else can answer.
the chocolate that statue is made of. I would think that one time you'd go there and you'd see it looking all melty, but no, they somehow it's just perfectly cold. And the mousse too. The mousse by Zoo America. How do they keep the chocolate cold? I thought you would think it would melt in the sun.
Do you think they replace it every year with like new chocolate? Or do you think it's like the same one, like decades on decades now?
I think it's every day. I think every day they just replace the chocolate statues of Milton Hershey and the elk at Hersheypark. And at the end of the day, they either use the previous chocolate statues to feed the animals or to feed the students at the nearby boarding school.
I feel sorry for
That's
those
that's the
kids if
only thing
that's
that
the
makes sense to
case.
me about why the chocolate statues of Milton Hershey and the elk at Hersheypark never melt in the sun.
Yeah. Anyways, yeah. Um, Speaking of, statues, they've got, a lot of stuff adjoining the pathways and whatnot as you go through. It's not your typical Cedar Fair kind of concrete,
No,
barren
no, it's not.
wasteland.
A
Yeah.
Cedar Fair park would not have a chocolate town.
No, they definitely would not. I mean, we do have a candy apple grove, but yeah, I think that's probably about the closest that we'll get to anything like that.
I mean, when a Cedar Fair park wants to make their entrance new and nice, they just kind of make the B&M go over top of it.
Yeah.
Hershey Park totally revamped their entrance with Chocolate Town this year, and they reworked Chocolate World kind of a little bit more into the park. And I think it's fair to say that Chocolate World is just part of the Hershey Park experience, given it's free, it's right there. If you go to Hershey Park, you can go to Chocolate World more or less just as much as you just want to go to Chocolate World. So, technically a separate attraction, but I always just kind of include Chocolate World whenever I'm talking about Hersheypark. I just think that's fair. You think that's fair, Max?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's been a hot minute since I've done the factory tour that they have in there, but I've definitely
Did
been in the what's it, the gift shop that's there,
Did you
because
get
they've
to do
got,
the classic factory tour?
I believe I have, because I know I took a trip up to that area, because I've actually like I've been to a couple Pennsylvania parks when I was really young. Like I did take a trip at some point to Sesame Place. I do not have any memory of that. But during that
Hmm.
same trip, we did go to Hershey Park. But I think we only did Chocolate World or we did Chocolate World and like Zoo America. I know we didn't do the main theme park because I definitely would have at least remembered some of that. But we definitely did not do that bit. So I have been to the area when I was really young, but it's so far removed from my memory that I couldn't tell you.
So like for me, Hershey Park is one of the critical parks for my coaster youth, as you would say. It's not the first place that I rode a roller coaster. It's not even the first place I got an inversion, which was strangely enough Geauga Lake. But Hershey Park was my home park growing up. And it's the first place where I ever rode a roller coaster that I thought was just huge and just larger than life, which was a Great Bear. Great Bear was like to me just the very image of a very intimidating large coaster for much of my youth. And Wildcat was literally my number one roller coaster for much of that time as well. So I'm kind of a Hersheypark stan. I'm like
Mhm.
a Hersheypark dude. I like Hersheypark.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree in the I love Hershey Park. There's nowhere in the world like Hershey Park as the commercial used to go, and it certainly is the case. It is quite a unique park, especially in, Pennsylvania of all places, which just has a litany of very unique parks in it.
I do think the story of how Hershey Park has come to be the way that Hershey Park is right now is pretty remarkable because if you just were to show somebody Hershey Park as it is today, and for a lot of enthusiasts, as it's kind of just now getting on like the national and international uh, level of attention. This is kind of the first time they're actually looking at Hershey Park and paying attention to it, and they just think, "Oh wow, that looks wonderful! Look at that coaster collection. It seems very exciting." But when I was born in 1988, Hershey Park had, I think it was like three roller coasters, and was basically like another version of Knoebels. So it's kind of strange to think that of a park that's in my lifetime gone from kind of like a Knoebels level attraction and level of impact to now being a national draw level resort sort of thing. It's just absolutely wild to conceive of that.
Yeah, for me, I was like kind of into coasters for a lot of my youth, but once it got to around 2017, right when I graduated high school, when I was 18, I started looking at like, what are some things I can do? And for my 2017 spring break, me and a couple friends of mine actually went down and visited another friend of ours who moved down to North Carolina. So we took a
Okay.
trip down there, did Carowinds for the first time, which was the first time outside of Florida parks because I have family in Orlando, so we could basically do the Florida parks whenever we wanted. But that was the
Hmm.
first time I ever really got into actually going out and doing roller coasters, like as an actual trip outside of just going to King's Dominion or Busch Gardens, which is basically equidistant to me. I live right here, middle of Virginia, and it's around 40, 45 minutes to Kings Dominion, around an hour 15 to Bush. So both of those are my home parks. I consider them equals in terms of how much I love them. But
But
so
didn't you go
after,
to a lot more parks as a kid though? I kind of feel as if like your family was more into them, right?
in a sense, like
Because
as I
my
grew
parents
up,
hated them. My parents both individually hated them, and it was
no,
kind of like a major effort to get to go to a theme park. So that might explain my coaster count versus yours, at least to start. Just
yeah,
saying.
yeah. Yeah, my mom was a stay-at-home mom for the whole time. So during the summer, we would all get season passes to King's Dominion because it was the two for one. We could go up to the park, enjoy the rides, and do the water park without having to spend, exorbitant amounts of money like, Bush and Water Country are.
A
Um,
wonderful day for a stay-at-home mother. Just get out with the
yeah.
kids, have no responsibilities. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we would do. Is just like pick a Tuesday or a Wednesday, go up to King's Dominion for the day. There's not much to do for it. We had passes. We'd smuggle in some food, as all families do.
Right.
And we'd, get there, ride some rides, then go to the water park, spend a few hours at the water park, then go back out to the dry park and do some more coasters, then head home for the day. It's just a nice way to kill some time during the summer, which is probably what kick-started it. Like, I can remember sitting in the back of Victoria's Pizza, which is the actual name of the pizza place at King's Dominion next to Drop Tower. Bet next
All
to
right.
no one knows that. But if you sit in the back of the pizza joint, there's these huge windows that lets you see out to like the front of the water park and
Right.
the front side of Safari Village. One of my first memories from that park was watching them build what was at the time the Italian Job, uh turbo coaster, I think is what they called it. Italian Job Turbo Coaster. Yeah, that sounds right.
I don't know.
Um,
Yeah, I don't know. My first visit to
mhm.
King's Dominion was in like 2016 for like a work picnic, and I think Backlot was either closed or I just didn't. No, it was definitely closed. Yeah, it was closed. I remember being bummed it was closed. I-305 was
That
closed. I got
oof.
front row rides on Volcano, and I didn't think it was that good. So that was my King's
Yeah,
Dominion trip.
yeah. But so like, yeah, I basically grew up at the park. Like, probably the inciting thing for me to really get into coasters was the announcement of Intimidator 305,
Oh
and
my
they
god, I
had a
would be so
live
hyped.
camera that I would get home and I would just pull it up frequently just to watch them build the ride because it was like something
That's
I'd never
awesome.
seen before. I mean, they say you're gonna do something 300 feet tall. To me, as a kid, I was like, I've never heard of a ride like that before. I mean, in passing, I kind of have because there was only three, technically four, but no one remembers Steel Dragon in
That
the
that
US.
came out
So,
right when I moved to the area. So it was kind of a similar experience where like I just got here and like, wow, they just got a Giga? That's
mhm.
funny. Wow, okay, cool. I should consider going there. And I never considered going there.
That's unfortunate, but yeah, that's how I got into coasters was really just watching that live webcam of them just building this just monstrous attraction, which even to this day still kind of scares me.
And right.
Just
And about like building attractions, one of the funny things about Hersheypark for me is that I said that I had gone as a child, like a youth, however you want to describe that age range. I think the last time I went to Hersheypark was honestly the middle school graduation like trip. So in eighth
mhm,
grade summer, I think would have been the last time that I went to Hersheypark as before my adult life. And the reason I say that is because I then went on a long sabbatical from riding roller coasters for something like 9 years, while Hersheypark goes on to build the most iconic coasters at its park now, the Intamin Trio. So it was kind of interesting for me to go back to the park in 2018 for the first time in genuinely almost 20 years and see these three coasters that were unlike anything I had ever associated with the park before, just in terms of raw intensity. Storm Runner, Fahrenheit, Sky Rush. You wouldn't even really know where to begin with them, but I don't know. Maybe I can ask you, Max, because we do have a disagreement on one of them.
yeah,
Storm
and
Runner.
we'll definitely get
Yeah.
into that. Um, for me, my first experience at Hershey Park was in 2018 when I hosted Joel and Thomas over from the UK, good friends of mine. Um, and so 2018 in general was a huge year for me. Like I accumulated over 150 credits that year from just massive uh like three different coaster trips over that year, which I
Oh
ended up
wow.
doing by myself because the friends of mine who I kept telling them, hey, this is going to get expensive, start saving up, didn't listen to me. And then when I made the plan and I was like, hey, look at this, and they're like, damn, that's expensive. And I was like, really?
That's
I never would
sort
have
of how theme
guessed.
parks work. Theme parks are a
Yeah.
great value when you go to the same theme park over the course of a season. They're a horrible value if you want to go to a bunch of theme parks in as short a time as possible. Are you listening to me, Thusies? Adjust your behaviors slightly. That's maybe what I'm suggesting.
Yeah. But so I got to I went to my first time experiencing Hershey Park was with these two other guys from Britain who have never even one of them had been to the US on the West Coast. The other guy, this was his first real international trip. And so I always remember this. We get to the park. I was sitting at 199 from Dorney Park the day before, and I was like, okay,
All right, so you
we're
get to
just gonna
just
bite the
choose what you
bullet.
want for
Yeah, we're gonna
200.
go straight to Sky Rush.
Of course you would. Of course it would be Sky
Yeah.
Rush. Of course.
hmm And so we got there, and there's a test seat, as you know, most major
Right.
rides have.
They
We
should.
each took turns, because we've heard all the stories of like Sky Rush kills your thighs, it's thigh crush, all that stuff. We just took turns sitting down in the test seat, pulling the restraint down, and then just like contemplating what's gonna happen because, and I guess we're just gonna transition into actually talking about the rides here.
Yeah,
With Sky Rush, there is a lap bar, and that is it. The lap
yeah,
bar
that's what I
comes
love
down
about it. That's my
onto your
favorite thing about it.
thighs. There's nothing to your side. There's something to put your butt down on. There's something for you to put your head back and your back on, and that's it. Like there's not even
And
any
it's
side padding on the
well, let's
seat.
not forget.
It's
Yeah,
just
if you're on the wings,
Mhm.
you do have something to bash your head into, which is the restraints on the middle seats.
Yeah,
So they had to replace the old ones without paddings for new ones with padding.
yeah.
Right? Am I wrong? You're the expert here,
I
Max, right?
believe, I mean, I'll pretend I'm the expert. Uh,
You have to be Max because I can't be. I'm sorry. I can't
that's
do this
fine.
one.
Okay, yeah. I'll make sure I have like an RCDB fact sheet just pulled up every time we start a podcast later on.
It is what I expect. I just want to be clear about
Yeah.
that.
Hmm.
We have standards, Max.
Yeah.
This is the Coyote Creek Coaster podcast.
Hmm.
Don't
Yeah.
check the acronym.
Yeah. We'll just not pretend about that part.
Yeah, we just
Yeah.
not
If we're
reference.
just
Just
gonna.
we'll just write it out every single time.
Hmm. Yeah.
We
If
put
we're just
ourselves
gonna.
into this corner.
Hmm. Yeah, if we just diverge for a second here about the name, we were just, running through different names to go with a couple days ago before starting this, and we ended up going with what you see here, Coyote Creek Coaster Podcast. I was like, what's a name that we can use, like a bunch of different things that we
Well, let's
have in
be
common.
clear. We demanded a Six
Mhm.
Flags America reference. It had to be a reference to
Yeah,
Six Flags America in some kind of fashion. I'm sorry, I'm involved.
yeah,
This was part of my contract.
hmm
It had
yeah,
to be a
and
Six Flags America joke.
for everyone who had that on your bingo card that we bring up Six Flags America in the first podcast, there you go. We're not going to do that ever again in this podcast.
Yeah, because we actually headed them off at the pass. We no longer have to guess when we will bring up Six Flags America in the podcast. It's already been brought up by the time the title has been read or referenced.
Yep. And
So
then
there we
that is
go.
it.
Our bases
Congrats.
are
Yeah.
covered.
Yep.
And what is
We'll do
Coyote
it.
Creek, Max? Just
Yeah.
so that they
So,
know. How
yeah.
does Coyote Creek
Yeah.
tie into Six Flags America? I'll make you
So,
explain this because it's more fun than me
yeah.
explaining it.
Yeah. So, at the very beginning, there was Adventure World, and they had an area of the park themed to the Wild West. And that area of the park is called Coyote Creek. That
Ah,
holds
Coyote Creek.
everyone's favorite ride, Mind Eraser. That's about all I'm gonna get into with that.
Mind Eraser
Yeah.
literally has a themed station on the
Hmm.
outside. Yeah, I'll be fair. I'm not making my claims too strong here. It's themed on the outside. Mind Eraser literally has a Wild West themed station.
Yep.
It's called Mind Eraser. Why? You know that the
I
original
guess we'll
name was
never
supposed to
know.
be Hangman?
Yeah, I did hear that.
Like, why would you not just go with Hangman? That sounds so cool. And I think, because I know that Opryland had an SLC called Hangman, and Premiere bought all the assets of Opryland. I would honestly think that if that included like the trademark to using the word Hangman for an SLC, they got that too.
Mhm.
They just missed an opportunity. All I'm saying, it's a
Yeah.
Wild West area.
Hmm.
And about it being Wild West, I do think it's kind of relevant to point out kind of why it's a Wild West area because Adventure World was the first expansion project of the, at the time, very young Premier Parks, who up to then had only operated Frontier City, which is just a Wild West theme park. So, them building an extension to an expansion in their new park that was a Wild West theme was pretty much a given. So
Hmm.
I've always thought that's interesting. And you go into Coyote Creek, you can actually see in the cement a little AW like brands in the cement for Adventure World.
Yep.
So I think that's cool. I
Anyways.
don't care.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Anyway. Yeah.
that's our Six Flags
So,
America reference in our title.
yep. And that is, the basic explanation for our title of why it's named what it is. Anyways, that divergence aside, back to Hersheypark, 3 hours away. Um, yeah, Sky Rush.
So
We started on the
how
restraints,
do
then we
you
got
feel about the
sidetracked.
restraints? Because I do have a story about the
Hmm.
restraints, but
Yeah.
I don't want to just trample all over
Hmm.
other people's opinions. How do you feel about the restraints?
So, I'm not the biggest fan of the restraints in a bubble. Like there is better restraints out there from a strictly objective, how does this restraint feel? Yeah, there's definitely better restraints. For
See,
the
I just
ride,
disagree.
it does what it has to, because as we mentioned, there is no other padding on the restraint. There's nothing to keep you from moving your body left and right. The only thing holding you into Skyrush's seat is that
Is that lap
restraint.
bar?
And if that yeah, that lap bar, if that lap bar isn't down on you, you're probably going to die. Like
Are you
half
listening, Airtime Thrills?
exaggerating. Yeah. But yeah, no, like I understand why it's that way, and while it is a little bit frustrating that, it isn't the most re-rideable coaster in the park, I understand
Really?
why, and
Candemonium
I
right there.
completely, yeah, we'll get to that later. Yeah, so like I don't think they're the best restraints, but for what they do the goodest job as they can. The goodest job they can. That is some proper English right there.
Oh, here's how I feel about the Sky Rush restraints because when you were saying for what they need to do, they work very well. I
Hmm.
would go about a step beyond. I would say that so far as restraints either add to or don't subtract from a coaster experience, no restraints add more to the experience than the Sky Rush restraints on those wing seats because there isn't a more open and exposed feeling in roller coasters than that wing seat on Sky Rush. And you were
Yeah,
just being on that. And the story that I wanted to tell. So my first ride on Sky Rush, and okay. So I'm Thuzy trash. I can admit it. I'm yeah. We all are. Me too.
I'll
So
say it, but I refuse to use the term enthusi. I absolutely hate it with a burning passion.
okay. So now I have to use it twice as much just to be that guy.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I had heard the stories about Skyrush. I thought I was prepared for Skyrush. I was not prepared for Skyrush, and if I had been prepared for Skyrush, I would not have tried to get Gap on Skyrush because that's what I tried to do for my first ride on Skyrush. And I'm sorry, but that's just instinct, I think, for a lot of us is to try to get a comfortable amount of room. I'm telling you right now that you do not want to have a comfortable amount of room on Skyrush because it will become an uncomfortable amount of room very quickly. I think the problem that a lot of people have with the thigh crush, as they call it, is they try to have a comfortable amount of room, and then when it inevitably comes down during the ride, well, it just comes down straight square, like in the middle of their thighs, where it's going to be
Hmm.
absolutely painful. If you just put the lap bar in your lap where it's supposed to be from the beginning, you're going to be fine. Because I've only ever had like one like thigh hurting experience from Skyrush, and it was that first ride where I tried to get a little bit of gap, and on the whip around the turn after the Stangle dive, I was, and this part isn't an exaggeration. I really feel like I have to preface this statement to say that I was not kidding. Like this was the feeling I had in my soul was that I had been ejected from Skyrush on the left wing seat, and I was about to die alone at Hersheypark because I was a fool who had to get gap. But no,
Yeah.
I mean no, my thighs then cramped into the restraints and kept me from falling out. It was incredible. I saw my life flash before my eyes, but I don't try to get gap on Skyrush now. I feel like
Yeah.
that's the lesson, like the Leave It to Beaver kind of lesson. Like if Beaver rode Skyrush and got gap, he would get off Skyrush going, "Well, golly gee, I should try to just let the lap bar be in my lap, Mister."
That's a reference I don't get at all. Probably because I'm too young for it.
Yeah,
Oh well.
I don't even know if it's a good Leave It to Beaver reference. I just know that Leave It to Beaver is an old hokey thing. So there you go. That's where that came from. But yeah, I
But
love
yeah.
Skyrush's restraints, and like I don't want to pretend otherwise just because other people have been riding it wrong. Like I like Skyrush restraints.
Yeah.
You know what
The good
I
thing
don't
about
like?
ride opinions is that everyone can have one, regardless of how wrong they are.
I mean, I think we both agree that the ride experience of Skyrush is just great. Like
Oh
it
yeah,
really is just one of
it's
the most intense experiences that you can have on a roller coaster. It's
yeah.
wild.
Skyrush is my number one hyper, just barely behind my number two hyper, which is located a couple hundred feet away.
Is it your number one intimate at the park though?
Yeah, it is my number one in the park, number one Intamin, number one hyper. Well, number one Intamin at Hershey Park. I have two other Intamins above it, which one of them is understandable. The other one is incredibly controversial, but if you don't know me, you know which one I'm talking about. I'm not going to disclose it until we get to a point in which it is to be disclosed, not to scare everyone away because of my trash opinions in roller coasters.
That's what people are here for. It's a roller coaster podcast. They're here for the trash
Mhm.
opinions and getting mad at them. That's why people watch half the people that are on YouTube as well.
Yeah.
It's just hate fuel. It's like sports radio. I'm mad, but I'm engaged.
I mean, that's what they say. Anger gets clicks.
Okay, so then your number two
Mhm.
intimate at Hershey Park. Let's go to that one next.
Yeah. Number two, Intamin at Hershey Park. That's gonna be around halfway down the park, up and down some kind of strenuous hills. Yeah. If you ever want to work out, go to Hershey Park and just walk from the front of the park to the back and back again,
It's
because
not that
they've
bad.
got a
Come on.
yeah. I mean, it's not terrible, but like, especially in like the hollow, you've got some pretty rough inclines that you're going up and down. But
But
yeah, the
don't
back of the
leave us in
park.
suspense, Max. What roller coaster are
hmm
we walking to?
So we're gonna go take a walk over to everyone's favorite temperature themed ride,
Yes. Yes.
Fahrenheit.
Fahrenheit, my boy. I love you, Fahrenheit. My favorite thing
Yeah.
about Fahrenheit is that posted on the outside of Fahrenheit is the exact equation for converting Fahrenheit to Celsius and back, just so that the European enthusiasts that visit can shut the fuck up.
Yeah. So yeah, Fahrenheit. The currently as of posting, unless that Chinese one ever got finished, I don't know. But currently as of posting, the only operating Intamin tower coaster in
Is that
which you
Tower Coaster? It's like the model name.
I'm like 99% sure. I think that's what it says on RCDB, but like,
That's
they're
that's cool, I guess.
moderately accurate. Yeah. So yeah, a very fun ride in which you get in your regular three long Intamin trains from the, mid 2000s, early 2000s, tens, that's train design. You sit in it, you take a little turn out of the station, and then you get on a lift that's 90 degrees up. You go over the lift, 97 degrees down, and into a very compact but surprisingly well, not surprisingly. People are surprised that it's forceful. I don't get why, because like it's
I'm not
intimate.
surprised. It looks
They know
cool.
how to make forceful rides. That's literally kind of their MO. Sure, they might make them too forceful sometimes, but that's besides the point. They know what they can do. They push the line
Well,
a
I
lot.
gotta be honest with you. I don't think there are actually that many Intamins that are known for being too forceful. I mean,
Yeah.
Skyrush, Intimidator 305, they definitely get
hmm
that
Yeah.
reputation. You have the Heartline roll on Maverick that got removed,
hmm
which I honestly could believe was just like a marketing stunt as much as anything. Like, I like
Yeah.
conspiracies, so, whatever. I mean,
Yeah.
what other
No.
Intamins out there would you say are like too intense?
Um.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is like they can be
Yeah,
very intense,
honestly,
but
like,
the too
yeah,
intense ones are very few and far between.
yeah. I mean, they like pushing the limit. That was their thing. And arguably they still are doing it, maybe in a slightly toned back deal so they don't have to spend several $1 million redoing their coasters after the fact.
Well, now they're doing
Um,
it by just copying RMC.
yeah. Nah, RMC took yeah, there's a nice agreement between RMC and Intamin where RMC took all of Intamin's mechanical and reliability issues, and in turn, Intamin gets to use RMC's whack ass elements. No, I'm not jilted because the main RMC next to me is a mechanical nightmare. I'm definitely not that.
I kind
Mm,
of think like Fahrenheit is a good it's a very revealing coaster to ask somebody what their favorite element of that is, because inevitably you're gonna get people that say the airtime hill at the end, and that's how you know you can ignore these people for the rest of their lives.
I don't like saying this, but I kind of do have the same sentiment. Like, if you're looking, this is more just a gripe slash complaint to the people here. If you're only looking for airtime in a ride, and then you complain that the ride doesn't have airtime when that's not what it's designed for, please reconsider how you look at roller coasters. Like, I'm
I
sorry,
mean,
but like there's sometimes like I hear people complain like I didn't like I-305, the airtime wasn't that good. Like, really? There's a whole four elements of airtime on that ride.
it's not an airtime
That's
ride. It's
ignoring.
not.
Yeah, it is not. There is airtime there, partially to keep people from just blacking out on the
You know
ride,
what?
but that's besides the point.
Unpopular opinion, I would say Skyrush isn't an airtime ride either. It's got three airtime moments at the beginning. I mean, the drop, the first two airtime hills, but I feel like
Yeah,
most of the intensity in that ride experience really comes from the exposure on the wing seats and just the transitions in those whips. I mean, the transitions in
yeah,
those whips are like I-305 level, but
yeah,
with four cross seating. It's ridiculous.
yeah. I wouldn't quite say it's I-305 level, just because when people think I-305 whips, they think the rapid left to right transitions that the ride is known for.
Yeah,
Skyrush doesn't really hard turn, but due to the lack of any sort of padding on the side, you feel every ounce of laterals that ride can squeeze out
yeah, you
on
do.
it, as compared to Fahrenheit, which is more on the positive G's. There is some good whippy elements on it, such as the back-to-back what you call them,
The
corkscrews, which,
corkscrews, yeah.
yeah, from people who I've talked to, they basically say they're about on the same level as the Intamin tin inversion models, or at least
It's
in terms
so
of
funny you brought that
Colossus.
up because I feel like
Hmm.
Fahrenheit, if aside from it's being a Norwegian loop and not a regular loop, Fahrenheit is basically the first half of the Intamin 10 inversions, right? You've got the loop, you've got the
Yeah,
Cobra roll, you've got the double corkscrews, and then I would absolutely trade five Heartline rolls for one airtime hill. I mean, I'm sorry, they're five Heartline
yeah,
rolls in a row.
yeah,
I don't
hmm,
need those.
yeah.
Two would
It's
have been
just,
fine, right?
yeah.
I feel like two's
Could
cool.
you imagine if like the airtime hill and then it like kind of bounced up into a hardline roll, U-turn hardline roll into the brakes? Like they just extended that little bit out instead. What would people think of the ride in that case?
Okay, hold on. This is a tangent now, but now I just want to ask:
Hmm.
do you or do you not believe that a JoJo roll is a separate element? Because there is
Oh
a
God.
radical element amongst the coaster enthusiast community saying that JoJo rolls are not separate elements, that they're just Heartline rolls.
Mhm. Um, I mean, I can definitely see the argument for it because they're kind of approached in different ways. I've done both major roller coasters currently in operation that have them. There was only two that have them, right?
Yeah,
I think so.
it's
Yeah,
that's Hydra and Copperhead
yeah, and
Strike.
Copperhead Strike. Yeah. So I've done
Anything
both
else
of
is
them.
not a true. I mean, Smiler, no. Anything else, not a true JoJo roll. Okay, get Shellraiser
Yeah.
out of here. Not a JoJo roll.
Yeah. Because I think when you say like a JoJo roll, you think of that as the roll that comes directly out of the station. Like that is the very
Exactly.
first thing that happens, as opposed to it,
Exactly.
because that's literally taking it at the speed of the station dispatch, as
Yeah,
compared to having a drop with some additional speed going into it beforehand.
because it's pretty much about a maximum hang time moment as you can engineer into the ride.
Hmm.
Like, I don't think you could get the trains to crawl any more slowly and any more reliably through a hang time element than a JoJo roll.
Yeah.
If JoJo rolls aren't elements, then Cobra rolls aren't elements. They're a half inversion followed by a reverse
It's
corkscrew followed by a
what's it,
half
a
loop.
sidewinder into a dive loop. There you go.
Yeah, that's what Cobra rolls are, I guess, because
Yeah.
order doesn't matter.
Hmm.
Any rate,
Yeah.
it was supposed to be a tangent.
Yeah.
Let's get back to it. Okay,
Yeah.
Fahrenheit. We both like
Fahrenheit.
Fahrenheit.
Hmm.
So then
Which is
maybe we should get to where our disagreement lies
yeah.
with
So
Stormrunner.
The
I do think it
third
would be
and
fair to.
final Intamin of the park. Yep. Is
I do want to say this first though that I have one ride on Storm Runner, so my opinions are sincere. They are fully sincere, but they're on one ride. Okay, that
mm,
we can be clear about that. It's okay.
yeah. I'm sure there's plenty of people, myself included, who have many roller coaster opinions based off of a single ride.
You have
I've
to. I
got
mean,
several
sometimes you
rides
can't
that
ride
I can
everything
say,
multiple
yeah.
times.
Or, you can have a horrible experience at the park where they don't talk about the rides going down. And I'm not going to get into my over Georgia rant. That's going to be another day. But suffice to say, I did not have a good time at that park. I only have one ride on, not even every ride there. I'm missing like three or four official credits. Two of them are major scale attractions, but that's for another day.
Yeah, that's another day. Like Storm
Yeah.
Runner, I would have loved to have gotten more rides on Storm Runner this past year, but stuff happened.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
have my one ride
There's
on Storm Runner to grade it on. And
just
my thing is,
some
I've also been on a number of the other Intamin accelerators. I'm sure you have too, but like I
yeah,
do think
I've
that
done.
having done King Caw and Top Thrill Dragster
Hmm.
first may have taken some of the punch away out of the whole cable launch, which
Hmm.
are sick. But by
Yeah.
that point, I've already had like a few, so
Yeah.
whatever.
Like the thing I say is that, with Storm Runner, there's the main draw to Storm Runner as an intimate accelerator is that there's more to the layout than just a top hat. Whereas
Yeah.
with King Dakar and Top Thrill Dragster, the main thing you're going there for is for that launch, and that's about it. If you want to enjoy
Well,
the
hold
top hat
on.
and
No, the
the
drop.
novelty of, yeah, the drop too, but like the big thing is that you're going to be sitting there on that launch track waiting for Zumanjaro to frickin' cycle already, god damn it.
Yeah, just
But
watching Zumanjaro, just watching the Zumanjaro caddy
yeah.
slowly come down the poles.
Hmm. Yeah. But
That's the King
yeah.
Dakar experience.
Yep. Come on, Jersey. Let us operate both at the same time already. I know you aren't listening
Okay,
to this podcast, but I'm gonna make that plea anyway.
absolutely infuriates me that New Jersey apparently requires King Dakar to have over-the-shoulder restraints, and yet the slime streak restraints are allowed to exist. I'm sorry, those like how is that? Someone needs to go stop slime streak if New Jersey is that concerned about restraints. I'm just saying.
Yeah. I still need to make my one and probably only trip out to American Dream before the place closes for good.
Okay, but Stormrunner,
Yeah.
it is the whole
Hmm.
thing is supposed to be
Yeah.
it's a whole layout, but
Yeah.
that's kind of maybe the heart of one of my criticisms is it is supposed to be like a full
Hmm.
layout, but it still feels like it ends like kind of as its beginning.
Yeah.
Like
Like you
I
literally
didn't,
you have launch, top hat, it's just a fucking what's it called? A Not a dive loop, it's a Immelman. Just call it an Immelman.
yeah, and
Then
like
the flying snake dive element. Then you got that wacky twisty bit that is, standard on
I
that
like that.
style of Intamin. And then
I
you
call
hit the
those fake
brakes.
outs. I don't know what else to call it.
Yeah.
That's like a fake out when it just banks to the wrong way, like for
Hmm.
no reason, like
Yeah.
just pretend it's gonna go over here, but it's not. That's a fake
Yeah.
out to me.
Hmm.
But
Or,
I
just a
love that part of
random
the ride. I love that
overbang.
part.
Yeah.
But yeah, here's the thing: is
It's a
up to that part, the launch is just not quite strong enough to be a really
yeah.
overwhelming launch. The top hat is just not quite tall enough to be a really impressive top hat. The Immelman is an Immelman. I'm sorry, Great Bear has
Yeah.
one right there, and it's way better. So up after that, once it hits the flying snake dive and that fake out, that part's really cool,
Hmm.
and I get really excited just as the ride ends again. That was my
Yeah.
experience on Storm Runner.
Hmm. Where
Maybe
did
I
you ride
ride it
it
in the
at?
summer,
Do you
and
remember?
it turns out I was on a dialed down launch or something, and they just yeet
Mhm.
me over that hill. I'll enjoy it.
Yeah.
Maybe, maybe not. Who knows? Can't ride it.
Yeah. Yeah, I was saying, what seat did you ride it in for your one and only
Front.
ride?
So my
Front,
first
yeah.
ride on a coaster, I just about always do front. If something
Hmm.
isn't like directly preventing me from it, I always do front for my first ride on a roller coaster. That's going back to when I was a kid. I just
Hmm.
love the front
I
seat. I'm
mean,
a front
yeah,
seat dude. I can ride
yeah.
the
I
back.
mean,
I'm not one of these guys who's like Twisted Timbers, way better in the back.
hmm,
100%.
yeah.
I can ride the back, but I like the front
Hmm.
row. I love the front
Yeah, I
row.
mean, you're gonna have your pros and cons of each of them. In my opinion, um, I almost said Dragster, Jesus Christ. Dragster is just bad. I'm not gonna get into that because that's my other horrible park experience at those places in Ohio, but that's that would add an additional hour into this podcast, and we've already been running for around 45 minutes according to my timer. So,
Yeah, but
yeah.
when we consider all the stuff that we'll have to cut because
hmm
I'm stuttering through it, we're probably at about
Oh
17,
yeah,
18.
exactly. But yeah.
That
Uh, shit. What's the ride called again? Um,
Storm Runner,
Storm Runner. Yes. Jesus Christ.
very
Storm
generic name
Runner.
as well, by the way. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
glad it's not a candy name,
hmm
but Storm Runner.
hmm
They're chasing storms, they're
Yeah.
running storms, they're doing all kinds of things with
hmm
storms. I'm over it.
You got that. I'm assuming it's supposed to be a Mustang horse on there on the front,
Yeah,
or
a
just
Maverick.
you
It's a
know.
Maverick.
Yeah. But yeah, I personally think that the ride is more of a backseat ride because you get like that pull over the top hat. You get
I can
the
believe that.
flying snake dive is kind of good in any seat really, but especially on that second twist where it kind of pulls you down,
Uh huh.
I think it's a lot better in the back. Not saying the front is bad, because I do enjoy the front on Storm Runner. I just think that the back is better on it personally. And, you know, whenever Intamin sends over those parts that they need to get the ride fixed, hopefully they'll do that this year. We'll
Or
come
just the
back and
people,
revisit it.
whichever it is.
Yeah. hmm
Well, so the thing about the
Yeah.
Intamin coasters is, I mean, we like them. I mean, I liked Storm Runner. I could say that it was not quite what I expected, but it was still a decent ride. It wasn't bad in any kind of way. More or less, everybody loves the Intamins at Hershey Park and the roller coaster enthusiast community. How do you think Hershey
hmm
Park feels about Intamin? Because that's kind of hotly debated as well.
Yeah. Um, I mean, that's a
I
hard
will
thing
say
to
this.
answer
So
because,
I
like,
was watching, because I went on a laugh track binge, earlier this
hmm
year. You were there for that though. I
yes,
was
a
all
couple
about laugh
times.
track
Yeah.
because I could actually ride laugh track because there was not a line
hmm
3 hours long to
Yeah,
ride laugh track,
exactly.
right?
We
So
get in there early, get a spin
right,
on candy, then book it to the back of the park to get on that ride before it, inevitably gets a half an hour long line still for some reason.
I still just
Well, not
remember
some
the look
reason,
on the
but
guy's face when we got off Candemonium and I like looked at you and I was like, "Fine, we did the candy ride. Now let's get to laugh track right now and ride something for real."
yeah, you just basically made a joke like I'm so hyped for Candemonium, and I remember just kind of like looking out the side of words are difficult, Jesus, looking out the side at the two who were obvious just enthusiasts behind us, and they just had the most like confused look on their face of like, did this person really just say they can't wait to go ride a laugh track?
Yeah, but I like laugh
And it
track.
was
Laugh track
just,
is awesome.
yeah,
But anyway, the reason I brought it up is I was
yeah,
watching this Ace behind the scenes tour that somebody from Hershey Park was giving to this Ace group,
hmm
right? And I believe it
yeah,
was from opening year, if I recall right. But they were basically
hmm
just very happy about Laugh Track and the talk. And what I specifically remember her saying was that they liked that it just operated and it just worked, unlike
hmm
some coaster editions that they had tried to do in the past. Like was something
yeah,
specifically that she said was unlike coasters we've done before. This just
hmm
worked and we had no problems with, which I kind
yeah,
of took as like a dig at the Intamins because I feel as if didn't they
yeah,
all individually just have some kind of issue in their early years that prevented them from
yeah.
being ridden by anybody that would go to the park. And by the way, while we're on that conversation,
hmm
Candymonium this year, every time you and I went there, wanted to ride it,
Yeah,
running like a dream. I don't think I ever saw
yeah,
downtime on Candymonium. Just saying.
yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, that's, I'm sure at least in part why they went with B&M again because, outside of one incident, they've never had an issue with what's it, Great Bear as far as I'm aware. Whereas,
Yeah,
Intamin and these are, the Intamins that they have are from that kind of era of Intamin pushing things possibly a
yeah.
little too far and having issues and having to go back in and correct those.
Hershey Park was funding a lot of that Intamin R&D. They were taking that
Yeah.
Hershey Park money and turning it right around into making, Intimidator 305.
Yeah. Oh man. But yeah, I mean, it certainly is an interesting dynamic. I'm sure they're not the happiest with Intamin. Are they going to do anything with Intamin ever again? I think that remains to be seen because I
I think
could
no.
see them. yeah, I mean, probably not. I mean, they do have three major rides from them already, and there is plenty of other manufacturers out there that can provide them the same things Intamin does now. Mac has not necessarily a stranglehold on the launch world, but like most launch coasters, a lot of people seem to be gravitating more towards Mach
Yeah,
rides now,
I'm waiting for the
and it's
mock takeover in
understandable why.
America. It's coming.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm sure outside of the couple of issues, I think Cedar Fair is very happy with Copperhead Strike from what I've heard.
I know I'm
Um,
extremely happy with Copperhead Strike. I love that ride.
oh yeah, definitely, but we'll get to that ride eventually.
Well, hold on. Okay, so we're not
Mhm,
sure if Intamin will end up building another roller coaster at Hershey Park,
yeah.
but there have been some rumors that have been kind of floating around about B&M building another one or two rides at the park. Do you put any stake into that? And whether you would or wouldn't, what kind of B&M do you think would be a good fit at Hershey Park if they went that route?
Yeah, so I mean, I think I could definitely see Hershey Park continuing with B&Ms. Their two rides are spectacular, which we need to talk about them still. Uh,
I
but yeah. Wow, we're very organized here on this pilot episode for our podcast.
mean, it's kind of what we were
Um,
going for. Is we're just talking
yeah,
about Hershey Park. And I don't think we
yeah.
don't need to necessarily get to every ride, but Candemonium's a big
hmm
one, so we should
Yeah,
definitely fit
I
that
mean,
in at
we
some
need to do
point.
at least the top five, probably the GCI Woodies, and then we can just briefly mention the
Yeah,
rest
I
of
don't think
them
we've even
because,
have we even used the word Wildcat yet? Oh my god, I'm horrified. I
I
let this
think,
happen. I did. I know. I mentioned Wildcat was my
yeah,
number one. So okay,
yeah, I
we've
think
gotten the
that's about as
Wildcat
far as we
reference in.
got. Yeah, I
Thank
think that's
goodness.
about as far as we got.
Let me take care of this as well. Lightning Racer. Okay, good. That base is covered.
hmm Yeah, yeah. But so in terms of like getting B&Ms there, I do believe that Hershey Park will at least get maybe one or two more. In terms of what they are, depending on what Cedar Fair does with King's Dominion, and even then, this might not be dependent, I kind of, kind of could see them doing a wing coaster at Hershey Park. And I say mentioning King's Dominion because there was those plans for that shortened version of the freaking, I think it's like a Hot Go clone over in China as a replacement for Volcano, which I think is the dumbest thing in existence. Like, oh my God, you could try better than that. I know you don't want to do something extravagant, but um, I'm not going to get into my rants on King's Dominion's management. That's
Not
another
not
day.
extravagant doesn't have to mean lazy.
Yeah, true, but like, it doesn't feel like something that should replace Volcano.
I will say what feels lazy is a 4D free spin.
I mean, at least that's replacing a flat ride that does a similar thing, except not as good.
Yeah,
But
true.
yeah. At least they're actually replacing something when they remove it for once, um,
I
in
mean,
in
technically
a timely
they
fashion.
replaced Hurler when they took it out.
Yeah. I mean, they
Give them
closed
credit.
Hurler for 2 years before they did anything with it, really, but
Oh, I forgot about that.
yeah, they
See, I'm not
closed it
I'm
in
not a King's Dominion guy,
2015
so
and
I'm not subject to all
mhm,
the scars that you guys have had to go through.
yeah, King's Dominion is an abusive relationship. That's all I'm gonna say. Um,
Oh no.
but yeah, like, so I could possibly see a wing coaster going to Hershey Park. In terms of their other models, people have thrown around the idea of a dive or a mini dive.
See, a dive is what I'm
That's a
going for, but I wouldn't think of
mhm,
mini dive. I
mhm,
just don't think mini really describes Hershey Park. When they go for these coasters, they
yeah,
go for something big.
yeah. I could, 'cause like the nearest one would either be Griffin or Valraven, which is, a good distance away from either. And,
Yeah.
same with wing coasters. The nearest one would be Gatekeeper, and that's maybe Wild Eagle would be the next closest one after that. So they have, in terms of the current offerings that B&M has that they're actually selling a decent bit of, there's not any super close by to Hershey Park. I don't think I could see them doing like a floorless or some other sort of sit down. Well, other sit down. Jesus, they're all sit down rides.
Yeah. And if you kind
Because
of
they've
buy
got their
into the
invert.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
I was gonna say they've got an invert, they've got a hyper by them. Those are the two big things that B&M's probably well known for
That's
outside of their, and I use this term very loosely, outside of their gimmicky rides, you know.
That's actually kind of what I was about to say is like if you buy into the concept that Hershey Park got a hyper because it's the most safe model from the most safe manufacturer, and you take into consideration they also have an invert, which I think is B&M's most constructed model, if not, it's obviously way up there. I would feel as if the other B&M extremely safe standard option would be a dive. Wing, I think, would be up there, but I feel as if dive is just like
Yeah.
that sure hit kind of
Hmm.
category
Yeah.
that I think Hershey Park is looking for from Hershey Park is looking for from B&M. They're not
Yeah.
looking for a flyer. I can't imagine.
Yeah.
I don't
No,
think they'll be
I.
doing the surf coaster,
Mhm.
whatever it is, but I could absolutely
Mhm.
see them just going for a dive coaster,
Yeah.
kind of putting the beautiful vista that is Hershey Park in Hershey,
Mhm.
Pennsylvania,
Yeah.
in prime view.
Yeah. I definitely would agree with you, especially on the flyer bit. They're not getting a flyer. Like B&M flyers are, they're a good ride, but they require a lot of work on them. For anyone who knows, like flyers are actually incredibly mechanically complicated,
I can imagine.
obviously, but like, yeah, they're probably, I think, outside of the B&M family coaster, I think they are their least so well, and then the sit down, the floor sit down, but that's kind of got upgraded to the floorless coaster. I think the
I
B&M
kind of feel
Flyer
as if
model,
wing coasters are the next evolution of floorless coasters, and that's why you don't really see floorless
mm,
coasters anymore, but you see tons of wings.
yeah.
They do the same thing, are meant to accomplish the same kind of
Hmm.
feeling, but wing
Yeah.
coasters just do it better.
Mhm. Well, and also all the B&M, pretty much every B&M floorless follows a very similar layout. So once you've done one, I don't want to say once you've done one, you've done them all, but
Well,
if you go to a B&M floorless, you know what to expect. You're
if
gonna
you go,
have maybe a little pre-lift, a lift hill into either a good drop or like a flat drop or a nice whippy curving drop, vertical loop, usually a dive loop after that, zero G roll possibly, Cobra roll or other two inversion element, mid course if applicable, and then corkscrews. And that's pretty much the B&M floorless formula.
well, okay, I do have to ask though, how much of that do you think is the fact that half the floorlesses ever ordered were ordered by Six Flags?
I mean, that definitely, you know, does factor into it somewhat.
It's a very Six Flags model.
Mhm, yeah,
It was that era in time. It was
and
that kind of
yeah,
ride they went for. And
mhm,
then I think once Six Flags stopped buying them, they mostly stopped selling them. You know that Six
yeah,
Flags did get that one wing coaster. I think Six Flags
yeah,
just kind of got out of the
X-Flight.
B&M game the moment they started switching over to wing coaster
Yeah,
being that more preferable model.
yeah, and I mean that was right, right around when they started not putting in so much money into it, because the X-Flight model is actually
That's when
meant
they
to be a
found
clonable
RMC.
model. Yeah, that too. They did get RMC on board, and
They
you
found
know,
Coaster Jesus and Shilky.
yeah, apparently. I don't think he's Jesus personally. I'm sorry for, my sacrilege to coaster enthusiasm as a whole, but RMC is not as good as everyone makes it out to be. They're great rides, but like, calm down about them for the love of God.
Well,
Ugh.
here's the thing: is we have been talking about most of the roller coasters so far, the biggest ones, and I think we'll still get to
Hmm.
Candemonium. But like, as
Hmm.
a park, how do you? Well, let me put it more specifically, okay? Because
Hmm.
so me coming from Hershey Park, as a Pennsylvanian, I enter Hershey Park and I think of the theme of Hershey Park being Hershey, Pennsylvania. But when I talk to people outside Pennsylvania and they talk about the theme of Hershey Park, they think of it as Hershey's chocolate. I would feel as if Hershey's chocolate falls under the umbrella of Hershey, Pennsylvania, because it is the primary company here. But when you go to the park, I feel as if most of the aesthetics and most of the experience is influenced by that small town atmosphere in Hershey, Pennsylvania in general. I mean, Chocolate Town, a lot of the architecture that went into Chocolate Town was
Hmm.
inspired by the Hershey community. You have that compass
Yeah.
rose outside the entrance
Mhm.
that points to all the different significant things that Milton Hershey was involved with in his lifetime,
Yeah.
all those different
And
things. But
mhm.
like, as a
And then
person
like
who was like a Virginian, do you see Hershey Park and you don't think of Hershey, Pennsylvania at all? You just think chocolate and Reese's and stuff.
I mean, kind of. I mean, especially now with, their main headliner attraction literally being themed to candy.
Oh
It's
my god, I hate that.
yeah. Yeah,
I-
it's
am at peace. I'm at peace with my favorite
mhm,
roller coaster being called
yeah,
Candemonium, but I'm not happy about my favorite roller
yeah.
coaster being called Candemonium.
Remember when everyone made that name solely as a joke? Like thinking, what if they named it like Candymonium or something, and then it
And then it was
actually
real.
happened. Yep.
Oh
Ah,
fuck.
oh well.
But
It
yeah,
is what it
so you just
is.
think you mostly think of it as chocolate. You think Hershey, you think
Yeah, because I
chocolate,
think of
chocolate,
like,
chocolate.
yeah, Hershey, the Hershey's chocolate, Hershey candy, that sort of thing.
I mean, obviously that's the largest part of it, but I
Hmm.
think that okay, if you next time if you've been to Hershey Park, next time you go to Hershey Park, try to focus a little bit more on like maybe some of the aesthetics, like the Skyrush station. The Skyrush station is
Yeah,
intended
and
to
I was
be
gonna actually mention
reflective of
that.
like train
Yeah,
stations
it
in
was
the
a train
area.
station style. Yeah,
Like
I
stuff
know.
like that. I that's some of the things that I really enjoy about Hershey Park because I
Hmm.
think it has a very central Pennsylvanian identity,
Yeah.
and that
It's
is
a very
cool as a
nice
central
overall
Pennsylvanian.
atmosphere for sure. I very much enjoy my time going into the park because, especially in the first half, like they do have, shade, decent architecture to look at. It's not, just kind of a wide open one-way path to the back of the back of the park is, but
And
you
they've
know,
also got history because one thing that Hershey Park does that a lot of other parks don't is that they've not torn down old roller coasters to build new ones.
yeah,
I think going back to like the twin toboggans that got torn down in like the 70s, we're only talking about Roller Soaker being torn
yeah,
down, and pretty much
and
because it was a failed attempt in the
yeah,
first place. But
because it
these old
was
rides
roller
like
soaker.
Trailblazer,
Hmm.
Comet, Super Duper Looper, other parks, I
Hmm.
feel as if these would have been sacrificed to
Yeah.
budget cuts or expansion previously,
Hmm.
but you have that extension. You have that bridge to the past at Hershey
Hmm.
Park, which is, by the way, why I really enjoy riding Trailblazer. We've ridden
Yeah.
Trailblazer together. I get hype
Yeah.
on Trailblazer. I like
Yeah.
Trailblazer a lot.
Yeah. For like, 5 minutes of Trailblazer. The ride does absolutely nothing. Like, I'm
No,
sorry,
it does. It
there's
does not a damn thing. I'm not gonna pretend that
I'm
it does.
pretty
It does no
sure
things.
the
It's so
track
cool. I
from the
love it.
station to the lift hill is longer than the track from the lift hill to the mid-course brake run.
You're probably
Like,
right, honestly.
yeah, it's literally, drop down out of the station, do a little S-bend, you're going through the transfer barn, up the lift hill. Lift hill has a straight section, then you kind of curve, do a little, like I think it's a 7/8 helix roughly, jump up, and oh, you're already in the mid-course. Then you jump down, jump up, helix, like roughly a 540 helix, jump up, and then you're in the brakes. That's it. There's literally nothing to the ride. The most you get is some decent laterals in the second half, and I say the second half as though it's like longer than, 1,000 feet, but like,
And I like just
yeah,
going up the lift hill, and you've got the Hershey homes right there to the right,
hmm,
and you can realize just how like close to the actual rest of the
yeah,
community Hershey Park really is. I think
yeah,
especially because driving up, you're just passing fields and fields
hmm,
and fields. But
yeah.
yeah, like you
And
are
then of
right
course there's
next to that
storm
whole
runners.
residential area right over there.
Excuse me. And then there is, storm runner right above it when it's actually running, but that's pretty cool too. Like, yeah, Trailblazer does nothing, but it's just a guilty pleasure ride. Like, it's just dumb fun is really what it is.
I kind of how I would describe Super Duper Looper too.
Yeah. Super
Like that
Duper
gets that
Looper is
gets
a
really
very,
fun, especially towards the end.
yeah, yeah. I still hold to it that if you're sitting in the right seat on the Helix, you can reach down and just touch the concrete.
Oh, I'm
Obviously, I'm
certain you
not ever
could.
going to do that
No, I don't
because
want
I
to. I don't
value my
desire to.
fingers. Um,
My confidence that I
but
can
yeah,
does not reflect my ability to do so. I will say that
yeah,
much.
yeah. I'm sure I can do it. However, I have enough common sense not to do it.
If I can
Um,
put what might be an unpopular opinion
mhm,
out there, though, Comet, I'm not that hype on Comet. I mean,
yeah,
I respect its place in the park. I would never suggest that it should be closed just because it's not my kind of ride, especially because
yeah,
you can clearly see how popular it is with most of the people at the
yeah. It's
park. The
still a
line for
very
that is always
popular ride.
absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah,
I just don't feel the airtime that everybody else
mhm,
apparently feels on Comet. Do you
yeah.
feel the
Like
airtime on Comet?
there is some pops here and there. That's like, reminiscent of the first half of Phoenix, which,
Oh
is probably
no.
like, and I say the first half of Phoenix. I don't mean the second half of Phoenix. I mean
Okay,
the
that's
first
fair
half.
because
Yeah.
Phoenix literally gets stronger with every airtime moment.
Yeah, like Comet is like that first half where like you feel like you're gonna get something, but then it never really pays off. Like it's still a good ride, and like I don't see them ever really replacing it, partially because what the hell can you replace it with?
Yeah, I
It's
mean it's
just
already
in
just so
such a
integrated into the park.
weird, yeah, it's in such an odd position. I mean, that's kind of the same with Super Duper Looper as well. Like
Yeah.
Trailblazer, sure, you could probably fit something in there.
That's like
You
every
might
ride
have
in
to
the hollow
wiggle stuff
actually.
around. Yeah,
Like
like the
okay,
hollow is just
so you've heard
stacked
about like
everything on
how
top of it.
rats when they're in like a whole nest together, sometimes their like tails will get tangled together and they form a rat king and they'll never be able to separate. They'll just all eventually die. That's the roller coasters in the hollow at Hersheypark. They've formed a coaster king. They've just all wrapped around into each other.
Yeah.
Sky Rush, Comet, Super Duper
Hmm.
Looper, Great Bear.
Yeah.
When one dies, they'll all die.
Yeah. Like maybe the closest one in terms of easy removability would either be Skyrush or Great Bear, because those two are more on top of than underneath. But like I don't see either of those rides going anytime soon.
Sky Rush would probably be the simplest just because it takes up that
Yeah.
big block of area over the
Hmm.
lake. But even
Yeah,
then, you
like
can really lake. I'm sorry, the creek. Even then, you can
yeah.
really just build something else over the creek. So
Hmm.
that I don't know how practical even that is.
Yeah.
Wow.
Anyways, yeah. Speaking of Great Bear, we haven't gotten to that ride yet.
Oh my God, there's
It's
just so many coasters to talk about at Hersheypark.
yeah, there really
Great
is.
Bear.
At
When I
least
first rode Great Bear, I thought it was too smooth because I remember thinking like, well, that was fun, but at least when I ride Wildcat, it feels out of control. These steel coasters are too smooth.
yeah,
That's how smooth Great Bear was when it opened.
yeah, yeah. No, if there's one thing B&M can do right, it is a smooth roller coaster. I've yet to ride a B&M that like I've actively disliked because it's rough. The
I think,
my least favorite one would probably be Vortex at Carowinds, and that's more due to the atrocious profiling of really, really early B&Ms.
but even then, like
But
Great Bear is probably even an
yeah.
especially good example of that because I feel as
Yeah.
if Great Bear is one of the more graceful
Hmm.
B and M's that still attempts to
Yeah.
be intense. Like the Immelman on Great Bear is
Hmm.
just absolutely just the cleanest Immelman that,
Yeah.
and then into that zero G roll. Oh my goodness, just
Yeah.
that sequence. Honestly, the
Hmm.
whole first half sequence of Great Bear
Yeah.
from the helix through the
Yeah.
zero G roll is just absolutely
Yeah.
wonderful. It's a
Yeah.
very strong ride from beginning to end. I love Great Bear.
Hmm. Yeah. The Helix especially, that's like you don't think to put a Helix. Oh, geez, excuse me. You don't think to put a Helix as the first element on really almost anything, but especially not a B&M of all things. But like it's surprisingly forceful. Like you
It's
get that little
extremely
drop and then
forceful.
it's just like you push down, you're like, whoa, okay. And then you kind of glide up, kind of twist over, and then you drop into the hollow,
Yeah.
which is like it's a very unique start on top of a very unique ride.
I think it's because of how they had to avoid putting uh, footers into Spring Creek.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I can see why, because I actually in a Planet Coaster park I work on, I actually used that exact same thing to do a off the mid-course bit on a B&M invert because
Oh,
I couldn't quite get something to work, and I was like, what could I do here?
I
And I
just
was
Great
like, oh
Bear.
yeah, Hershey, yeah, just Great Barrett. And like it actually works out very well, both, in the park that I made, but like in real life too. Like it's a very unique thing to have, that kind of kick drop down and then you're like, oh, okay, and then you drop into the standard B&M invert layout, which, no harm against it. It's a very good layout for an invert, that vertical
Oh,
loop
that's an
followed
extremely
by that
solid layout.
immelment and then into the zero G roll. And then you get
Like
into the real wonky bit
the,
for
the the
Great
funny thing
Bear.
about Great Bear is I don't feel like it could have done anything else.
Yeah,
Like
it's
it
like,
just fits so perfectly into where it is and the ride
yeah.
experience. Like it has the exact sequence of elements that it needs to have to be perfect.
Mhm. Yeah, it's a very unique ride amongst unique rides at the park. Because then you get, for anyone who hasn't seen it, just Google search Great Bear Hersheypark. Put that into Google Images and then just look at the support work that they had to do to avoid putting any concrete footers in the actual creek itself. It is really wacky. And like it works so well in terms of
I love those
execution.
coast
Like,
supports. I love them.
yeah, it's just one of those things you look at and it's like when you understand why they did it, it makes sense. And like for what they had to work with, it was incredibly well done. You get that kind of weird, like kind of bend, and then you get that little kick as the ride kind of reorients itself before it sends you into that final zero G roll, and then it kind of bounces you up into the station.
Oh, I
Um,
absolutely love it.
which yeah, that's another thing to talk about. The station is like the midpoint in terms of total elevation change on the ride because it's right up at the top corner of the hill on the hollow. So like you go up, I
I
think
never
the
really thought about
drop,
that as how much more
yeah,
Great Bear drops than it climbs, but it does,
yeah,
doesn't it?
and like they kind of had to end the ride where they did because they probably wouldn't have enough momentum to get the train back up to the top of the hill if they went on for a few more elements
I
because
think
it's just
anything else beyond what it does would feel kind of forced. It lasts just as long as it needs to. I do
yeah.
think that maybe part of why I'm okay with shorter rides like that, so long as like they feel like they're doing stuff from the beginning, unlike a
Mhm.
storm runner, is probably because I'm a Hersheypark person. It's what I was raised on. It's what I'm
Yeah,
used to. I don't need it to go on for 2.5 minutes. I liked
yeah.
Wildcat. Wildcat's done after 45 seconds or something.
Hmm. Yeah.
Candymonium's the same way, actually. I mean,
Hmm.
Candymonium is not a very
Yeah.
long ride experience, but
Hmm.
every single part of
Yeah,
Candymonium is
like,
just incredibly impactful. And let's
hmm
just talk about Candymonium, why not? We're getting
yeah,
like about an hour and a
finally
half
the
in.
yeah, we're an hour 13 on my recording here, which, obviously will be cut down. Yeah. But
Yeah, we're at about
yeah.
23 minutes in air time right now. But here, okay, so let me start off with Candymonium because I was fortunate enough to be
Yeah.
among the first riders. So I signed up
Yeah,
for the
you
king
got
size pass specifically because it
hmm
had the Candymonium preview perk, where
hmm
for the 2 days before when the park was
yeah.
opening, you could
The last
reserve
two
a
days
time.
of what was
Last
it,
2 days of
June, right?
June, yeah.
Yeah,
You
'cause
could
I
reserve
went
a
on
time to
July
come down and
1st.
ride one time. So here's what my dumbass did is I was thinking, okay, by the end of the second day, I'm guessing that there's not that many people, and you're not only having to ride one time. You can ride as many times as you want. But I want to be one of the first people to go on. Because I'm dumb like that. I
Yeah.
like stupid stuff like
Hmm.
that. So I got
I
I
mean, you
reserved for like the
literally
first hour, the
somebody,
first hour of the
yeah,
first day. So
just to
I
put
waited
it
like
out
30
there.
minutes. I got one ride. I got kicked out after that. One of my ex boyfriends who went to Hershey Park, he signed up for the
Mhm.
same thing and went on like the last hour of the last day, and he rode like 12 times. They didn't kick him out, so I was right about
Yeah.
that. But oh well, I got to be along the first ride. Candymonium has
Hmm.
been like my number one coaster since the first time that I've ridden it. I was absolutely gobsmacked by riding
Hmm.
Candymonium, and I think most of it is just that first hill because I did not know
Hmm.
that you could be punted out of your seat that strongly and held there for that long as you are on Candymonium's first hill. It is just so
Yeah.
consistent, so strong, and so withdrawn. It is ridiculous. The rest of the ride is great, but I feel as if that is like the one moment that just elevates Candy above just about any other coaster experience that I've had. Not the best single element, but oh my god, what a way to kick off a
Hmm.
ride.
Yeah, like for me, my number one P&M hyper has been Apollo's Chariot, partially due to how close it is to me, but also because most of the other B&Ms are the extended trains, and the nearest one to me is Intimidator, and
Yeah.
yeah. But like Apollo for me has been really good because in the morning it's not the best ride in the park. And granted, at this point, it kind of has been dethroned as my favorite ride in the park, partially due to a whole host of reasons. But like as the day gets on, you feel Apollo heating up and going harder and harder until it's getting really good. With Candemonium, it starts at like three-quarters of what Apollo's does at its best, and then just goes up from there.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
you get you like first morning rides, and that ride is already like you're getting really strong airtime, not the super strong airtime that you'd expect out of like an intimate ejector or
That's the thing
RMC
is like,
ejector hill,
I do want to
but
say like
like
I think something can be ejector without being the
mhm,
strongest airtime you've ever felt because I just
yeah,
really don't think that you can describe that airtime on that first hill as anything other than ejector. But I mean,
y-
just because it's not as strong as Sky
yeah,
Rush doesn't mean it's not incredible.
mhm,
I just
yeah,
hate the
like you're
I hate the
definitely.
term flowjector. Flowjector is just it makes my skin crawl.
It's for all those
Flowjector is
people
just
who think
ejector
that
on B&Ms.
ejector
That's
is,
it.
yeah, that's really what it is. I've only ever heard that term used on B&Ms, if I'm being completely
Yeah,
honest
no
with
one
you.
ever says, "Oh, that Mach had wonderful flowjector." No, it was ejector on a B&M, but you don't want to say you got ejected on a B&M, so it's
Because
flowjector.
it's B&M and they're bad.
Yeah, boring and
Fuck you,
mild.
Ohio enthusiasts. No. If you're an Ohio enthusiast, I don't mean any harm by that comment. I
I do.
just
I mean harm to the Ohio enthusiast. I'm a Pennsylvania enthusiast, so we have a rivalry.
Ohio will be eliminated. But yeah. Yeah.
I'm just
I
saying
have not
we've
had the
won two
best
wars. What have they
experience
done?
with Ohio theme parks, and that's going to come up probably every episode because there will be something that happened at an Ohio theme park that I'll say, well, I had a better experience at X than when I went to Kings Island or stuff like that. So look forward to that every time. Uh,
So wait,
but
where
yeah,
does Candemonium rank in your B&M hypers then?
Candemonium is my number one B&M hyper, and it is
Well, I thought
literally
you had said
one
Apollo.
step. It was Apollo.
Oh,
Candemonium has
before Candy.
unseated that. Yeah. Like Candemonium literally sits right below Skyrush in my overall rankings, which I don't like ranking things by a numerical value because then I'll say, "Oh, X ride was my number 20," and everyone's like, "Wow, you hate that ride." And I'm like,
No, I've
number
just ridden a lot
20
of
out
roller
of
coasters. Yeah.
257 does not indicate that I hate the ride. It just means there are rides that if somebody held a gun up to my head and said, pick between X and Y, I would rather go with X over Y.
I mean, that's
I
literally
still
like
think they're
90th percentile.
spectacular rides. Yeah. Like, I'd say, like, in my numerical rankings, you'd have to go to, like, maybe the mid 50s before you get to rides that I say, yeah, that's a great ride, but I think it could be better. Like, I love a ton of rides, and like actually making a numerical ranking to them is just literally, I'm just like sitting here like, okay, let's compare, say, Candemonium to Apollo. Since we're talking about, I'm like I love both of them, but like if I had to pick, excuse me, I'd probably go with Candemonium over Apollo. Not because, say, the ride is better. I mean, I guess technically it is a little bit better, but I still think that they are both great rides, and I will put my butt down on any seat
My
just about if I was given the opportunity, ever. I'd say,
my
like,
big
hey, you
problem.
want to go ride Apollos? I'll be like, absolutely. You want to go ride Candemonium? Absolutely.
Okay, yeah, the same thing. I would absolutely ride Apollo just about
Yeah,
any day. It might be my favorite ride at Busch Gardens, Williamsburg, depending on how I feel about Verbolten at that particular time.
I feel
But
that.
my big problem with it is the turnaround. The turnaround is just so drawn out and just kind of feels like a little bit of a lull. Candymonium does not have a lull. The
Yeah.
turnaround slaps, the speed hill slaps,
Hmm.
the helices slap. You and I rode at Holiday in the
Hmm.
Park, right? And I think you and I rode in
Yeah.
what might be literally ideal conditions for Candymonium because it was
Hmm.
about 40 something degrees. It was
Yeah, like,
cold enough for them to turn on the wheel
hmm
heaters, but I don't
yeah.
think warm enough for them to turn on the trims.
Yeah.
So we got that trimless ride, and it
Yeah.
was the strongest airtime I
Hmm.
have felt on that ride at 45
Yeah.
degrees out.
Yeah, like Candemonium does not seem to have a slow running speed. Its
No,
slow
I've not
running
had a slow
speed
ride on
is like
Candy.
better than like the majority of hypers out there in general. Yeah. For Candemonium, like there is no slow speed for it. Like it's slow speed, and I put slow in air quotes, its slow speed is better than like half or like two-thirds of just the hypers out there in general. Like that ride just starts, hits the ground running, and just gets better as the day goes on. Like you'll be out of your
Right.
seat on every hill.
So I'm about to
They,
make a fundamentally true statement. There is not 1 ounce of exaggeration or mistruth to this. I have
mhm,
not spent one fraction of a second in my seat while cresting Candemonium's first hill on any single ride that I've taken on Candemonium.
yeah.
I have
Like
been
I know there
fully
was a,
out of my seat over that entire crest, like 5 seconds, no matter what condition I've ridden Candemonium on. The first hour of the first day of preview operation, that thing was still already yeeting me out of the seat over the entire hill.
yeah, like for because you got the main hill, you got the turnaround, the second large hill, speed hill, and then yeah, then you got two hills, one leading into and one leading out of the panoramic helix over the fountain. And like every one of those hills just hits really hard, like obviously
Not
varying degrees of hard, but like
right.
it still hits really good on
And
all
there
of
are
them.
different, like, you might enjoy different kinds. Like the speed hill hits very hard, but just for some reason speed hill airtime is not my favorite. It just does not feel very dramatic. It just, I
Yeah.
don't know. So it hits very hard. It's not my favorite kind of airtime, but there isn't an airtime moment on Candemonium that fails to actually give you airtime. You're out on all of them, even when the trims hit.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. Like, and even then, like the trims, like, sure, there are some rides where, and I hate complaining about trims because I think that it's incredibly overblown how bad the trims affect some rides, with the exception of one. Surprise, surprise, is at an Ohio
I will.
park.
What I mean,
But
eh,
like,
you can be not complaining about trims, but also be hype when you get a trim-free ride. I'm just saying. Like,
yeah,
I'm not
no,
mad about
absolutely.
trims, but
Like,
I'm hype when they don't pop
mhm,
on. I'm just saying.
yeah, but like, I generally do not see the trims as affecting the ride in a negative fashion. 90% of the time, a trim is there because the ride needs it or that they want the ride to run in an optimal location, and the trim is a best use item for that. And, anyone who knows B&M knows they like their kind of controlled rides, but like, I've never had a B&M with a trim hit that's like actually killed my love for the ride. Is there a
Yeah.
couple times where I'm like, well, that was a little bit of a bummer because I know it can be better if the trim doesn't hit as hard. Sure, but I'll still enjoy the ride with
I mean,
with
sometimes
the
it's
trim hitting.
noticeable. Like when you take
Yeah,
that lurch forward, it's hard not to notice that you've just hit a trim. But I don't
yeah,
think I've ever been on a B&M and like felt like, oh, the ride's over, we hit a trim. Like I've not had that experience.
hmm
But I've not ridden Intimidator, so
yeah. Intimidator is probably the most temperamental B&M hyper I've ridden in terms of like the trim. I don't want to say affecting your opinions on the ride. Like, I do agree that it does feel like the trims kind of bring it down in some cases, but I'm not exactly holding that against it. Sure, it's probably, I think, my least favorite. Well, no, it's my second least favorite B&M Hyper, but I still will gladly get on the ride when it's not an hour-long line.
that's me on Laugh Track.
Yeah.
So yeah, Intimidator and Laugh Track perfectly comparable roller coasters.
That's a
They're
nice take.
fine if you don't have to wait an hour.
hmm Anyways, because we're rapidly, I don't want to say running out of time, but we are burning through time
Yeah,
here.
we really are though. Is
Yeah.
there anything we have not said about Hersheypark? We
We
didn't
need
talk
to hit
about
the
the ridiculous dark ride because
GCIs.
it sucks.
Yeah.
We didn't really talk
What's it?
about Lightning Racer. I want to defend
Yeah,
Lightning Racer real quick because here's the thing:
yeah,
people complain about Lightning Racer doesn't have forces. Okay, first of all, it does have forces. Secondly, it's a dueling roller coaster. The forces are not the premier
yeah.
focus of the ride. Wildcat is right there, and Wildcat has all kinds of
Hmm.
forces for you if you want to go ride a GCI with forces. Ride Lightning
Some of
Racer if
them
you want to get way too
intentional.
involved into the actual competition. Because here's the thing:
Yeah.
I am very sincerely desiring to win my Lightning Racer race. I know that I have like there's nothing I can do to actually impact it, and it's just pure luck.
Hmm.
But I want to win because it does make the ride better,
Yeah. And
and
especially
that's why
because,
you always got to
it's a
ride
dueling
Lightning.
coaster. Yeah.
Lightning can't lose.
God, 2019, I think it was, Lightning was like almost constantly performing better than Thunder. This year was a bit more of a toss-up. One time we rode Lightning Racer, I think like 4 or 5 times, and we lost almost every one of them, regardless of which train we were on.
No, I think you and I rode 4 times one day, and we alternated, and both every time
Yeah,
we lost. Just we
yeah.
just two
No,
skinny
I think,
boys.
yeah, I think we did 4 rides. 3 times we alternated between the two trains, and we were like, we just want to win one race today, and then we did, and then we never rode it again. Whoops. But
I
yeah,
saw some fresh wood outside Lightning Racer last time we rode, so I don't know. Maybe
yeah,
they got some track work planned for the off season.
hmm yeah. Hopefully, and then onto the other GCI, Wildcat. To touch on that really quickly. Big takeaway: don't RMC it. That ride is
Yeah,
not a
don't
good
RMC
RMC
Wildcat.
layout, and like,
That's just lazy. I mean,
why?
I
Yeah,
think the whole RMC Wildcat sentiment is just lazy because it's a Woody that you're not that interested in at a park that you
yeah,
are. Those are like really
yeah.
the only two criteria that people use.
Hmm.
This is a park that I want to go to, but it is a Woody that I wouldn't be that interested in. They should RMC that for me.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, but no, Wildcat is awesome. Like I said, literally my number
yeah.
one roller coaster as a kid.
Hmm.
I just loved the out of control feeling. Which by the time at that when Wildcat came out,
Hmm.
that Twister layout was
Yeah.
still very relatively new,
I
and it
mean,
was
it
kind
was
of
literally
a
like the birth of the renaissance of the Twister
yeah,
coaster layout, because
it was
that's
a
what GCI
trailblazer.
specializes in. Hilarious.
I know. I brought it back around to the other roller coaster. That's why it's a joke.
Man, that's amazing. Gonna
But they should put
get
the
you into,
PTCs back on. If they're gonna do anything, they should put the PTCs back on.
yeah, like,
But then also with the GCI
they
Titan
wouldn't,
track. I want to see how that
yeah,
combination
like,
works.
yeah, like, I think that's what they really should do with the ride, if anything, is do like a Titan track conversion. Don't really change the layout except for maybe a couple really jank moments here and there, and put the new Infinity Flyer trains on it. And boom, there you go. Your ride has just been extended on its longevity by who knows how many years. Like, just
No, I'm totally
just
with you
don't
there.
RMC it. Yeah, that's all our real
Protect
takeaway is. It's
Wildcat.
an all right ride. Just don't RMC it.
They
Like, if
should
you're
just
gonna
add
do
to the
anything
National
with
Historic Registry
RMC,
already.
yeah, if you're gonna do anything with RMC, maybe like a what's it called? A Raptor track, or whatever their next step up is gonna be, the intermediary between the T-Rex and the Raptor track that's been
I
discussed.
just don't feel that Hersheypark is a very RMC kind of place. It just does
Yeah, I
not feel
mean,
that way to me.
yeah, RMC probably wouldn't fit there in general. It's just, you know, that's, yeah, what it
I
is.
mean, I'd
And
be
then,
hype if it did. I just don't see it happening.
yeah,
I
no,
mean,
I
so long as
definitely
it
agree with you
wasn't
there.
Wildcat getting converted. I feel like if you want
Mm,
to convert a Woody at Hersheypark, Lightning Racer is the only real option. I mean, come on,
mm,
have some courage.
yeah.
RMC Lightning Racer would be so much better. It just would be. I'm sorry. You
RMC
have so
one
much more to work
track,
with.
do the Titan track conversion on the other, and then let's just
Oh,
go
that's
all out.
perfect.
See what we can do here.
Settle it once and for all. Which is better, RMC or GCI? They're really dueling.
Yeah, yeah. Anyways, what else is there? Coco Cruiser. I don't actually have that credit, um,
It's great
because I
chase.
just, yeah, I
It's just
don't
great
care.
chase.
I've done, I think, 5 or 6 of those Imperilous single
Yeah.
helix rides. The only one I ever enjoyed was the one that is no longer at Great Adventure, because we did it as a joke. It was me and a couple other friends, and it was just the three of us, like, obviously like young adults on the ride, and so the ride op was having fun. I've never been stapled so hard on a ride. Like, that man put every ounce of force that he could into closing our restraints. It was the funniest shit.
Well, that's what you
But
get,
yeah,
Doozy.
yeah,
And I think that'll have to do it for today. That we've talked about, I think,
yeah.
just about everything. That we can never talk
I
about
think,
Hersheypark on the show again because we've already said
yeah,
everything there is about Hersheypark.
yeah. I think we did miss Sidewinder, but you're not
No,
a
that was
boomerang
intentional. I don't want to
person.
talk about
Yeah,
Sidewinder. I fucking hate
that's fair.
Sidewinder.
Hmm.
I hate Side.
It's my
No,
favorite
okay, let me just
boomerang.
talk about it then.
That's about.
Sidewinder is literally the first roller coaster I ever got off disappointed. It's just that simple. The first roller coaster to ever let me down was Sidewinder. Just it hurt. It was not fun. And when I saw my second Vekoma boomerang, my first thought was, if you're gonna plagiarize a roller coaster, why would you plagiarize Sidewinder from Hersheypark? It's stupid.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I thought roller
I.
coasters were plagiarized. I
Mhm.
didn't know it was like a standard model. I
Yeah,
didn't know how that worked.
yeah. I like Sidewinder for what it is. Like the vest
I don't.
trains are definitely better than the I never really get headbanging on boomerangs personally. I'll ride a boomerang, I'll enjoy it, and then I'll go do something else. If I'm in the area and it's like there's no line up, sure I'll walk back on it, but that's about it.
You absolutely just
I'm
tricked
not.
me into talking about Sidewinder.
Yeah, I did. But
Jesus,
yeah,
I'll never
that's about all
forgive
we have to
you.
say for Sidewinder. It's a ride that exists. There's a better
It's a
ride
ride at
right
Hershey
next
Park,
to it.
yeah.
There's in fact two better rides. I mean, is Fahrenheit that close to Sidewinder?
Pardon me?
Is Fahrenheit that close to Sidewinder? I'm trying to
It's
think.
not that far from it, but it's not that close.
Yeah.
I mean, in the relative
Hmm.
sense of the park, it's nearer than it is to other coasters. But I think the only
Yeah.
real interesting to say about Sidewinder is that was the first roller coaster that Hershey Park started off their modern expansion with. I
Yeah.
mean, they had the 70s, but then like they really didn't do anything. They had built a roller coaster before Sidewinder. The most recent roller coaster before Sidewinder was Super Duper Looper. So yeah,
Yeah.
Sidewinder started off Modern Hershey Park, so that's
Hmm.
nice, cool. But it's a Vekoma boomerang.
Yeah.
I hate it. I don't want to talk about it.
Yep. And that's it. So,
That's the show. That's the
final.
Coyote Creek
Yeah.
Coaster podcast. I
Hmm.
really
I was
doubt
gonna
anybody
say.
listened to all of that.
I agree.
That was
Yeah.
so much talking about Hershey Park.
Yeah.
I said a half an hour at the beginning of the show.
Yeah, we really did, and we're just over an hour and a half in terms of total recording time here.
This is gonna
Obviously,
take
that's going to
forever
get
to
cut
edit.
down.
But yeah,
Yeah.
let's sign off and get this
Hmm.
over. I'm Rack Hudson.
Yeah. Hmm.
Thank you. The person I forgot to let introduce themselves at the beginning of the show is
Yeah.
Max.
Did we? That was a
I'm pretty
while
sure I
ago. I
did.
don't know.
That was
Yeah.
like 3 years
I
ago. I
mean,
can't remember that stuff.
exactly. Pandemic time has ruined all of us.
But yeah,
But yeah, anyways, for those of you who somehow made it all the way through our, I don't want to say disaster of a pilot episode, but I'm not that
it was a
um
bit rambling.
condescending on myself. Yeah.
Like, thank you for joining us.
Hmm.
Sincerely, we
Yeah.
do appreciate that. This is
Hmm.
fun, and
Yeah.
it's more fun if
Hmm.
people are joining us and giving us a reason to
Yeah.
actually do it. So
Yeah.
thank you for
So
listening.
we're we're gonna hopefully get more of this done. Once the parks opens up, we'll have more to talk about. Right now, we're just going through our backlog of, well, what have we done beforehand? You know,
Let's talk
assuming of
about
course that
this.
the parks open up on time, and yeah.
We'll talk about like new
So
coasters
yeah,
that are coming out and stuff too, because that's always fun.
yeah, yeah.
I don't think they'll all
Especially
be an hour and a half long. Just saying.
yeah, yeah. No,
But
we'll
yeah,
definitely find some stuff to talk about more later, but yeah.
yeah,
Anyways, as we said, thank you for listening
yeah,
all the way through, and
yeah.
how do we want to close this?
Ciao.
Yeah, there we go. Bye. Thanks everyone for riding. Enjoy your ride. Yeah.
That's what you
Get
need to
the
do is like an exit
yeah.
message. Thank you for listening to the Coyote
Yeah.
Creek Coaster podcast. Please gather your
Yeah.
loose articles.
Yeah. Hold on. I still
Give us
have it
one.
pulled up here.
Come
Let
on,
me
just do
just
it. Just do it off the cuff.
yeah.
Come on, man.
Okay,
Just do
off
your
the cuff. Here we
Alpengeist
go.
one.
Yeah. So, welcome back listeners. How was that time? How was your experience?
How
When the
was
train
that
comes to a full
podcast?
how yeah. Welcome back riders. How was that podcast? Speechless. I like it.
Woo, yeah,
When
I'm
the
the one guy on the train who's hype like ever. Woo,
yeah.
yeah.
When the podcast comes to a full and complete stop, please unbuckle your seatbelt, push up on your restraints, and exit carefully to your right, collecting any loose articles you may have lost on the way. Thank you and enjoy the rest of your time here at Internet World. Yeah. Thanks everyone.
That works
We'll
for
talk to
me.
you later. Yep.
Bye,
Goodbye.
everybody.